Welcome to the Deep Dive Books channel, where we hope you find something valuable every day.
We continue to discuss David Yeager's 10 to 25. The Science of Motivating Young People. This is the second part of our interpretation. In the previous lecture, some readers asked, why 25 years old? Could it be a few years older? And since the subjects in the book are all American, do Chinese teenagers share these same traits? In fact, adolescents across cultures and ages do show some differences, influenced by both hormonal levels and social environments. For example, in ancient China, some people went through a long adolescence. Let's take an extreme example. The case of Emperor Kangxi's deposed crown prince, Yunreng. This guy became crown prince at just 1 year old and remained in that position for nearly 40 years before being deposed. Throughout his time as crown prince, his mental state deteriorated, and his behavior became increasingly strange. As a child, he was well-behaved and obedient. Emperor Kangxi even said he only knew how to read, unaware of anything like playing. But when he entered adolescence, things changed. Since Yunreng was the crown prince, no other princes played with him. He was essentially isolated. People respected him only because of his father, and he spent his days longing for power but unable to actually wield it. Eventually, he uttered the famous lament. In ancient times, how could there be a crown prince for 40 years? Using Yeager's theory, Yunreng could be said to have been a 40-year-old teenager. Adolescents who mature early might be able to have children as early as 13, and according to past societal norms, could get married and start their own family. But nowadays, they have to continue studying. Perhaps until the age of 26, when they may land a full-time job, gain a social status, and earn respect. Until then, others still treat them as children. You may have the ability and conditions to gain status, but society doesn't grant it to you. Doesn't this reflect the crown prince mentality? Normal adults also enjoy good food, but hungry people think about food every moment. Adults need respect and status, but teenagers have an intense desire for both. Sometimes, this leads them to do foolish things. For example, not taking medicine regularly after a kidney transplant. We know the kidneys filter toxins from the body. When the kidneys fail, the person has to undergo dialysis 3 times a week, each session lasting about 3.5 hours. Before each session, they feel swollen and short of breath due to waste accumulation in the body. The only way to end this pain is a kidney transplant. Kidney transplants have become a fairly routine surgery, especially for teenagers, with nearly a 100% 3-year survival rate. Provided they take their medication on time to prevent organ rejection. It's quite simple. You just need to take immunosuppressants twice a day. Children under 10 have almost zero rejection rates because their parents ensure they take the medicine. But starting at 10, the rejection rate for adolescent kidney transplant recipients gradually rises, peaking at 17, before dropping significantly at 25. This happens because they fail to take their medicine on time. If you miss just one dose, the kidney might start rejecting. Miss several doses, and you could lose the kidney, forcing you back to dialysis and waiting for another transplant. What's worse is that, the kidney could have been donated by your aunt to save your life, and your parents may have spent a lot of money on the surgery. And yet, you don't take your medication regularly? How many doctors, nurses, and pharmacists repeatedly explain to these patients why they must take their medicine on time and what could happen if they don't? Parents will constantly check if they've taken it. But they still don't. They lie to their parents, saying they've taken it when they haven't, until the doctor catches them. Do you think these people are out of their minds? Why don't they just take the medicine? Immunosuppressants have side effects, including diarrhea, weight gain, bad breath, and excessive hair growth. For some teenagers, these side effects are more frightening than dialysis, because they make them feel out of place among their peers. To appear normal, they take the risk of stopping the medication. Yes. The respect of their peers is more important than life itself. At this point, you can start to appreciate the joy of scientific progress. In a previous lecture, we discussed Robert M. Sapolsky's Behave, in which he explains adolescent rebellion. Sapolsky said that, while other parts of the adolescent brain are fully developed, the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for decision-making, control, and planning, isn't fully matured. This means adolescents' rational abilities can't keep up with the emotional impulsiveness driven by hormones, much like a car with only an accelerator and no brakes. This classic explanation is called the neurobiological-incompetence model, which means adolescents' brains are ineffective, relatively incompetent. Evidence for the incompetence model can be found in experiments. For example, when a teenager's mother asks, "Did you take your medicine yet?" their emotional regions get activated, and the nagging makes them feel angry and annoyed. However, the activity in the prefrontal cortex is very low, showing that they didn't absorb the information, nor did they come up with a plan to take the medicine. See? The prefrontal cortex isn't working, right? However, a new generation of researchers, including Professor Adriana Galvin from the University of California, Los Angeles, believes that the prefrontal cortex is still developing in adolescence but is not ineffective. In the same experimental setup, if the mother slightly adjusts her tone, avoids nagging, criticizing, or controlling, the teenager can calmly receive the information, and the prefrontal cortex will activate planning. Moreover, if you ask the adolescent to think about how they can contribute to their community or how they would handle a social situation with peers, they are very capable of planning. Thus, Yeager and Galvin argue that adolescents aren't ignoring advice because their brains are ineffective. Instead, their brains prioritize respect and status. And this priority is actually right. Throughout most of human history, survival required establishing oneself in society, and to live well, one had to win respect and status in the group. People had to be included in activities, and others had to listen when they spoke. Today, parents and schools often say, "As long as you get good grades, that's enough," neglecting the social lives of adolescents or even cutting off their social interactions. This distorts reality. Don't we realize by age 26 that good grades don't automatically bring all good things? Among teenagers, the most respected are often not those with the best grades, and this is actually correct. Because society works this way. People respect those who dare to take risks, are strong, and maintain integrity. Teenagers want to have a positive image in front of their peers, and there's nothing wrong with that. You don't want to cultivate a superficial person who only values grades. Modern neuroscientists no longer believe emotions should yield to reason. On the contrary, Galvin says that emotional regions are the teachers, while the prefrontal cortex is the student. You can understand this easily. This is how neural networks are trained. Fear happens in dangerous situations, rejection makes us feel bad, and victory brings excitement. It's these emotions that teach you when to approach a person or group and when to retreat. Reason is the balance of emotions. You need to train accurate emotions first. Yes, adolescents may lack the knowledge and skills to bear heavy responsibilities, but their desire for respect and status is entirely reasonable. Whether they're 25 or 10, they have the right to be treated seriously. Since my son entered his rebellious phase, I've been careful to speak to him with respect and warmth. It's been shaped by reality. If someone no longer wants to be treated like a child, then don't look down on them as if they were. So when communicating with adolescents, the first thing is to take them seriously. Second, give them respect. And third, ideally, raise their status. There's a story in the book about an anti-smoking advertisement that illustrates this point. In 1998, the state of Florida sued several tobacco companies for causing cancer among its residents, demanding compensation. The tobacco companies agreed to pay. As part of the settlement, the state government and the tobacco companies funded anti-smoking advertisements. Initially, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention wanted to send 3 messages to teenagers. First, smoking causes cancer. Second, smoking turns your teeth yellow. And third, smoking is unattractive. An advertising agency, Crispin Porter plus Boguski, took on the job, led by famous ad man Alex Bogoski. Upon hearing the plan, Bogoski said it was flawed. Teenagers already knew smoking causes cancer, and yellow teeth wouldn't be an issue until they were 50. Saying smoking isn't attractive was nonsense. Didn't they see that in their social circles, smokers were getting more attention? The CDC wanted to instill a concept in teens, but these messages were insults to them. The tobacco companies were secretly laughing, thinking that such ads would only make more teenagers smoke. Bogoski proposed they research why teenagers smoke. The reality is that 90% of smokers start in their teenage years. Smoking is not a modern necessity. It's a rite of passage. Everyone knows smoking is harmful, and while parents may oppose it, teens smoke to assert their independence and prove they are adults. It's hard to argue with identity. The solution Bogoski came up with was to amplify the rebellious spirit of teenagers. This was a brilliant move, and the campaign was called The Truth, a message that tobacco companies had been misleading the public, making them unaware of the real dangers of smoking. So, we, the young people, are standing up to fight back and expose their lies. The Truth campaign became one of the most successful public health movements in history. Within just a few years, the smoking rate among American teenagers dropped from 28% to below 6%, and it's no longer a major issue today. Yeager shared several experiments, one of which revealed an interesting insight. Not all adolescents have such a strong need for respect. The key factor might be testosterone, the male hormone, which, by the way, is also present in females. The higher the level of testosterone, the more strongly a person will seek respect and status. In one experiment, when participants were sprayed with a little bit of testosterone in their noses, they immediately expressed strong dissatisfaction with any perceived disrespect. So, how should we talk to teenagers to show respect? Yeager and his team proposed 4 principles that were experimentally validated. 1. Ask, don't tell. Don't say, you should take this medicine, but instead ask, whether you might consider taking this medicine. 2. Honor their status, don't invoke yours. Say, you're a university student, so I figured I would explain the scientific reason why it would be helpful for you to take it. Rather than saying, based on what I know about medicine and disease, the smart thing to do is to take this medicine. 3. Validate and explain, don't diminish. You might find it helpful to think of that slight discomfort as doing your part to help others. Rather than saying, try to ignore that. 4. Presume agency. Don't make decisions for them. You should say, thank you for considering this request. Rather than, thank you in advance for your cooperation. This way of speaking doesn't diminish your own stature, but it elevates the other person. In fact, when you respect someone's dignity and status, you appear to have status yourself. It's like the ancient knights who met on the battlefield. Polite and formal with each other. When others saw them, they knew these were not people to mess with. So, how did the researchers convince patients to take their immunosuppressants on time? One approach was not to say, you'll be punished if you don't take your medication, but rather, taking the medication will show respect. Think about the person who donated their kidney to you, and the healthcare workers who are helping you. So many people have helped you and given you this precious gift. By taking your medication on time, you are honoring them. As for the side effects, let's figure out together how to deal with them. This approach is called collaborative troubleshooting. The transplant team made sure that the teenagers' parents were not present during these conversations, treating the teens as adults in the discussion. It's true that teenagers' obsessive desire for respect and status can be troublesome, but do you know what's even more troublesome? It's when they are deprived of the opportunity to practice earning respect and status. Those who understand this and can help teenagers navigate the path to gaining respect and status deserve a serious title: mentor. In our next session, we'll discuss how to be a great mentor. That's it for today's content. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.
If you feel there is value in this, please like, subscribe to this channel, and leave your thoughts or suggestions in the comments section. Let's grow together and read more good books.